Mark DeJesus, I've been looking forward to this for a long time. Thank you so much for being on the Provoke and Inspire podcast.
It's awesome to be here. I'm really looking forward to our conversation.
Yeah, me too. Me too. And it's interesting. It's a challenging world that you live in. You devoted your life to mental and emotional struggles and how to view them from a biblical perspective. And needless to say, we live in a world where this is becoming increasingly relevant. What initially drew you to this very challenging topic? What kind of compelled your heart to step into this space?
The biggest reason was my own battle and my own struggle, really coming to terms. I grew up in the church my whole life. From an early age, all my memories are being in church and was in church leadership at a pretty young age. But I found myself even in my 20s having battles with anxiousness, intrusive thoughts, a lot of struggles that I felt kind of crazy. What's wrong with me? Doing a lot of spinning emotionally and hitting stages of breakdowns where it's like I don't know what to do. I don't know how to deal with what's going on in my head and my heart. And so that led me to really taking seriously. I need to learn. There's stuff I don't know. There's stuff I need to learn, and because I need help. And so my journey really started with me trying to make sense of what I was battling. And within the midst of it, as I started to gain insight on some things that were very, very helpful and profound for not only mental health and emotional health, but just my overall journey and walk with Christ, I made this commitment. God, whoever you send in my path, send people to cross my path who would benefit from what you've done and what you're doing in my life. And so I committed myself to that. And then within a short amount of time, I made the decision to step out of the pastoral position that I was in at the time. I was on staff at a good-sized church, and I said, I want to help people. And that took me down a number of different avenues. I pastored a small church for about 5-6 years, and then but did a lot of teaching, writing books, a lot of one-on-ones. And as I began to share my story, it's like everyone, there's so much response to, yeah, I struggle with that. Hey, my sister, my daughter, can you talk to me? My kid, all this stuff coming out where everyone else has had similar battles of some kind, maybe not exactly the same, but within the arena, and realized, hey, I wasn't alone. I felt alone for a long time and realized I wasn't alone. People were battling this stuff too. So I just stayed on that thread of grace, which was just opening up. People, the church needs this. The body of Christ needs this. We're aching. We're hurting. We have areas of our heart that need healing. We have areas that we're struggling with and don't know how to make sense of. And so the more I stepped into it, the more I realized, wow, this is actually what I was called to do. I had like a certain framework, like we all do. God will do whatever you want me to do, and then we kind of have like a framework of what we think it's going to look like. And then my own journey and what I needed became the spark. And so I actually really like that too, because I find that effective ministry often comes out of what you've gone through, what you've been through. It's not something you're putting on, or performing. It's like this is breathing out of my own life. So that's kind of a quick snapshot of how that got started.
Yeah, of course. I think so often God uses both the positive experiences, like I mentioned before this recording started, my life and ministry of growing up in the music and art scene in Amsterdam. That's been a key part of my life for the rest of my life, and including ministry. And so, of course, that was a positive thing, and I can speak on that with authority. But God will even use the struggles, right? You see that in Paul's life, and the things he pulls you out of gives you sort of the posture and humility, especially, I would say, as it relates to a difficult subject. It probably would be, my guess, would be challenging to speak into these very deep, very personal issues, having just been someone who's been spared those, right? Like, you almost kind of have to have some feeling of what that actually is. Yeah,
absolutely. So when I talk about these battlegrounds, it's definitely not from an outside perspective, kind of studying something. And I'm very aware of what it feels like to be in those places where your emotions are overwhelming, your mood is overwhelming, you're having thoughts you can't seem to get past or around, and feeling helpless about it. And I never want to forget those moments. We want to just kind of put it away from us and just move on. I'm always reminded of what that's like because I see it every day in my journey, and I remember, and I continue to keep that in my heart. So, and it's not even like, I've arrived. So everyone, listen to what I have to share. I'm on my own continued journey as well too.
Would you say that, because this conversation has evolved and you've been doing this for a long time. How would you say things have evolved in a helpful way, maybe within the church first? I know that the conversation has also changed outside of the church. How have things changed? What have you noticed about our perception towards mental health, our willingness to address it and tackle it as a subject? Would you say things have changed for the better?
There's definitely a lot more awareness, for sure. A lot more awareness. When I was in what I call like the thick of like, what do I do? I need help. What's going on here? It was in the early 2000s. We're talking 20 years ago plus, right? Within those decades, we have seen a lot more awareness. When I shared it at the time, I was actually very nervous to even share it, to even share anxiety or share aspects of depression, or even sharing about, intrusive thought kind of thing. But I found that as I shared it, more people were willing to break through the shame. And sometimes that's what it takes. It takes people going, hey, I've got this battleground, and other people go, oh, hey, I'm not crazy. I just got some things I need to learn how to work through. But I think culturally, this is in our world, both in and out of the church, has been a struggle. I mean, for a long time, for hundreds and hundreds of years, they'd kind of chalk up any battle to like melancholy. Oh, that person's got melancholy, that kind of thing. Or just kind of a get over it, stiff upper lip mentality. Many people in our history of the world have had such heartache, have had such pain, and they were like in survival mode, constantly. So they passed down this mindset of just not talk about it, just get over it, just move on, do what you can. And I even bumped up against some of that in my parents' generation, where they just kind of never addressed it, never dealt with it, just keep moving. And so I think we're starting to come out of that a bit. And there's a lot more awareness, a lot more welcoming of it. We still have a ways to go in recognizing how this impacts all of us, but I am optimistic that there is a lot of good changes taking place of awareness of these battlegrounds.
So where do you see that we still need to grow? Like if awareness is now, we've developed awareness and there's more of a palatability, like, okay, it's okay. You can say these things out loud. You're not going to get condemned or shamed for it. Yeah. Where in your mind do we still need to progress in our understanding and tools for addressing these issues in the church?
Yeah, good question. I stand at the crossroads between two worlds. One is called the church world, and the other one is the mental health psychological world. Yeah. And it has had a very clear wall of separation. So a pastor has somebody in the church and say, I've been anxious a lot, been having a lot of panic attacks lately. They're like, okay, here, go to this counselor, right? I understand that. But there's this mindset of like in the church, you just preach the Bible and just do that. But mental health, we're going to categorize this over here. And I push back against that, not necessarily telling pastors, you need to know how to handle any mental health battleground, be equipped and be the guy, be the person to do it. I'm not necessarily saying that, but I believe that the body of Christ ought to be one of the safest places on the planet for people to experience love, the safety of connection, because a lot of our mental health battlegrounds have to do with a sense of disconnection. We feel disconnected from God. We feel disconnected from others. We feel disconnected even from how we relate to ourselves. And love has been compromised in some way where we didn't experience it in the way that it was meant to be, right? And so I like to bring the kind of the plainness of, we're not just talking about this mental health category we stick over here. We're talking about how you think. We're talking about how you feel. We're talking about your emotional life and how that affects how you relate to people. That's all of us, right? So I like bringing the subject, like I'd speak at a church and go, I'm going to talk to you about anxiety and how it affects you. Now, you may not have the battle that I have, but many of you do. However, all of us in this room have to deal with the fear factor in our life, and we need to be aware of it. So I like the idea of like, this is a discipleship issue. This isn't like just a thing over here that I go to a therapist for, and then I come over here. Now, I think therapists are needed, right? And so I find in my study, maybe this is just the way my mind works. When I read mental health research and studies, there's so much in there that I see the scriptures speaking to. And sometimes we get lost in terms, where Jesus talks about, don't worry about tomorrow. And you just basically like, tomorrow will take care of itself, and stay in today. Well, and they technically go, well, that's rumination, and
Sure.
Yeah, same thing. And Jesus said it thousands of years ago. We're just putting some new terms, maybe more specific terms to it. So I find that that's the next stage of growth, is realizing as pastors, as church leaders, as people of God, you don't have to be the superhero to the person that is struggling with their mental health in some area. But what you can be is you can be a very loving, safe listener, understanding, because that can't be dismissed, and how powerful that is. It's incredibly, some of my my biggest breakthroughs in life didn't necessarily come out of some kind of technical mental health therapy session. It came out of somebody loving me. And yes, I need understanding. Yes, I need to work through some things. But that power of people loving on me and me welcoming that in is incredibly powerful. So I think that maybe not having such harsh dividing lines of it, I think that it'd be great if pastors could talk more about their own journey. I unfortunately, I've heard of reports of pastors, like a pastor I'm thinking in my mind right now, who admitted his struggle with anxiety and depression, and that he's working on it, and he got fired.
Yeah.
And it's like, whoa, okay. Now people can have their opinions about that, but it's like, I could line up 100 pastors and point out all theirs. They just didn't talk about it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
So,
how much of this would you say is recognizing the continuum or the spectrum of these issues? Because as we've evolved in our awareness of it, I would say part of what it's done is it's helped in a healthy way normalize it to a degree that this is a human thing. Like, yes, there are extremes, of course, that need a certain level of extreme care.
Yeah.
But don't we all deal with seasons and times of varying degrees of anxiety and even, I would say, depression that are just a natural part of a fallen experience? And so part of it is recognizing that a more integrated model of communicating it and discipling people through it should be part of the church, because on some levels, we're all going to face this on one level or another.
That's right. Absolutely. And if you see it in a sense of spectrum, like you said, it's going to be much more fruitful, because then it puts us all into the picture of things. It's like, do you have severe chronic depression that's been debilitating? Maybe, maybe not. But have you, like you said, those seasons, right? And we that opens up the conversation to a much wider level of all of us learning and growing in this. And I think too, to get this mindset we have of like, I'm anxious, it's like, I got to get rid of this, or this depression, I got to get rid of this, versus seeing like, oh, this is something I'm going through.
Sure.
Because there's actually like in depression, there's things of learning how to relate to ourselves differently, of grieving that we may need to be going through. There's invitations there of even anxiousness. I found at every stage in my journey where anxiousness rose up, there were often around opportunities of growth, of areas I was stepping into, but it was nerve-wracking, or created a lot of anxious tension within me. But they were opportunities for me to learn how to get rooted in God's love in a deeper way, learn how to face my fears versus running from them. All right. So I think if, and some people have written to me, they appreciate that. I like to sometimes shift the conversation to, this is discipleship versus this is like, a side topic, because everyone deals with fear, and it's all throughout the Bible. Everyone deals with times of sorrow, sadness, or uncertainty, or doubt, or thoughts that come out of nowhere. Like, what do I
Yeah.
do with these things? So yeah, you're right on.
Yeah. And I think it's our discomfort with holding two truths together at the same time, which is that God, yes, he wants us to be victorious.
Yeah.
He wants us to grow. He wants us to progress. And also recognizing that struggle is always going to be with us, right? Sometimes I feel like maybe you relate this to a marriage context and you think, well, if there's struggle, there's something wrong. Well, I've been married now for a decade and a half. I don't think the struggle's ever going away, right? Like it's part of it, and reframing it as this is challenging. Being human is hard. And Jesus doesn't call us to completely cure us of all things, but he does promise to be with us and grow us in all things.
Yeah.
And that's it. Wouldn't you say that's a critical distinction? Yeah,
it is. It's good. It's you articulate these things really well. And I think the aspect of making room for humanity, and Ben, I didn't make room for humanity in church circles I kind of grew up in, and the influences in my life. I had to be a superhero.
Sure.
It's like God's going to show up today. And, kind of that, like, here we go, very driven, very perfectionistic, very pressure on me. And it took like these emotional kind of breakdown moments to realize I'm carrying a burden I don't need to carry. And I'm not making room for the humanity of life, and there's so many moments, like even when Jesus went to the tomb of Lazarus and he stood there, at the grave of somebody he's about to resurrect. And he weeps. It's just a beautiful picture of those two things, of like resurrection and life, yet weeping in the moment. And I think in our modern world, we have to make terms with we're not allowing room for our humanity, weakness, just that ache within our hearts, of making room that just because I'm grieving or I'm sad doesn't mean I'm not victorious. I'm actually finding great things. I've become more powerful to let myself go through those seasons. I've found connection to God, or connection to his word, or even just greater confidence in him through those valleys, versus like trying to run from them, because we constantly want to get away from feeling bad and move towards feeling comfortable and good as quickly as possible. I respect what you guys do, because you put yourself in uncomfortable places. Right. You just kind of, and I think in some ways you probably just get used to it. You're just kind of in these places, you're evangelizing, you're reaching people, and you're just in that place. I think a lot of us are just wanting to get uncomfortable feelings away. But when I looked at what I was battling, I said, okay, all right, Mark, you got some stuff you're going through. We're going to learn, we're going to walk this journey, and God's with me in this. And that, I find that to be such a more beautiful picture of his grace and love, because it's this journey mindset now. Instead of like, get this thing off of me, get it away from me. Now I'm walking and I'm learning renewal of how to think, of how to respond to my emotions, how to even respond and deal with other people in a renewed way. It changes the whole dynamic of how I see things. But I think we're pushing Christians to be so much superheroes. They're carrying these burdens, and then they're expecting to be at this like kind of level and state all the time. They don't make room for the drier seasons, or feeling empty, or the sadness, or the anxiousness, and realizing it isn't necessarily about something that's wrong with you, but more about something that you're walking through. That it might need just some insight, some edification, just some equipping to learn. And I learned the most in the actual walking. So yeah, great point.
Well, and we are so profoundly equipped to deal with the reality of life, and that's why it's so sad when we put on masks and we put on fronts as followers of Jesus. Like, I get it from a secular perspective, right? If you were all you had and this was all there was, and there was no transcendent hope or pure, perfect love, then what else do you do but run or numb or avoid or cope? But here we are in this position where we know that we have this perfect and profound love, that we are fully known in all of our weakness and still fully loved. I mean, what a profound, beautiful picture of being able to be fully who we are, and from a place of wholeness, deal with our stuff.
That's right.
Like, as paradoxical as that sounds, it's like, no, you're not working on your stuff for acceptance and wholeness. You get to work on your stuff from a place of acceptance and wholeness. Like, what a profound shift and equipping mechanism for allowing us to actually grow. It's so sad that we hide when we should be the most liberated and honest at the same time. And that would speak so powerfully to the world. Yeah.
And what you're hitting at is a really, really big part of what we're calling the mental health world, is our connection or sense of disconnection to love. It is a big deal, because I would say at the root system of it all, somewhere within there, and I'm not trying to create a silver bullet to everything, but just at the core root system is how connected are we to love. And so there is a big thread within Christianity where we do get into that performance mode. And you said it wonderfully about living from a place of being loved rather than try to live for it. And so when you have a battleground, we step forward to get fixed. And what I find is that we're bypassing love. It's like you said, these two things at the same time are hard for us to comprehend. That we are absolutely loved right where we are at and embraced. And then in that embrace of love, our lives are changed in response to that love. But we're dodging it because that powerful love is what we want, but it's really uncomfortable. It's like very uncomfortable because if I step in and embrace that, then it shifts how I relate to my battles. It shifts how I see my past. It shifts how I see the struggles of other people. Like everything, my vulnerabilities come to the surface. So we tend to just go, "Hey, Mark, I heard you helping people. Okay, I got this battle. Can you fix me?" So I've had to do a lot of chipping away over the decades of chipping away at that. Like, just fix me, because they're dodging love. I got this anxiousness, just get it away from me. And let's take a journey about your relationship to the love of the Father and what it means to be rooted in that dynamic love. And it's like, right? But it's there and it's available for us. And that was actually the first layer that opened up to me, was my disconnect to the love of the Father that he had for me. And I grew up in the church my whole life. And I mean, my earliest memory is a wooden church pew, just kind of put the setting in and did all the things, and I realized later in my adult life, I don't know how to connect to you as a father. I don't know how to connect to you in your love for me. And I look back and go, no wonder, I'm so vulnerable to so many things I'm battling with, because a disconnect to love is that important. So it brought me back to a reboot, like, let's just get back to the foundation. I got in all these tangents and things. Let me just get back to the fundamentals again and learn what it means to be loved by him, to live from that, like you said, which was actually a saying I would say to myself, like, today I'm living from love now. I'm not living for love, because that actually changes a lot of things.
Why or how do we miss that? Like, why? Like, it feels like the first level of the game. Like, don't move past it until we get this. And yet, I get it, right? There's a humanity to it. But how do so few people, and myself included at times, not learn that most profound lesson that all other lessons would then far more easily and naturally stem from?
Yeah, there's a lot of layers to it, and I think that some of it is performance-driven Christianity. We kind of just get busy, do a bunch of things for God. We in evangelistic work, it's God loves you as you are, and receive the work of Christ in your life. We step in, and then we're like, all right, do this. You kind of it's like, wait. We can't leave this love. We got to keep growing in what that means. And I think too, if we're gonna walk in love, we're gonna have to deal with our personal interference with love, meaning our areas of brokenness. And so if I'm gonna walk in love towards you on a regular basis, then I'm gonna have to allow myself to work on my emotional world, on where I struggle to love, where I struggle to see myself in love, where I get insecure and how I act out of insecurity. I have to, right? So I think that it became something that it connects to our emotional brokenness. And so we don't really deal with brokenness, or at least traditionally. It's kind of like, just move on. And so loving people became a performance thing I do in ministry. but not necessarily something that I know and I live in on a regular basis. It's not something that, so many Christians, you talk to me about, when I'm home alone at night and everything's over, the day's over, I feel so far from God, feel so disconnected. I feel so discouraged. I feel such a narrative of not feeling rooted in that love. So I began to really embrace that. This isn't something the love of God is not something I graduate from. This is a fundamental. I am for the rest of my life, always growing in, always learning, because it's so multifaceted and so life-changing. But I also have to take a step to deal with some of my pain. I got to slow down a bit. I got to make room for pause, because love's not in a hurry. It's patient. It's kind. I gotta take a step to go. I want to. My priority is being relationally healthy versus my go, just do. So I think that the accomplishment world often takes over, and I'm sobered by Paul's words where he's like, I could give my body to be burned. I could do this if I have not love. Well, the things that he listed out, very intense things. You go, how would you give your life to be burned and not have love, right? Well, I think one of the ways is that we could just live in this life where we're trying to do stuff for God, hoping that now, God, you'll love me. I'll go to these great lengths to get this connection to love. And that's why Paul said, love is the greatest. We could talk about a lot of things, but it's the greatest. It's not a side thing. It's not something you graduate from. It's the greatest. So when I began to shift and value that, it slowed me down. My hyperspeed living. It made me shift from valuing the one-on-ones, where in the early stages of ministry, I valued the crowd. You got these crowds. Oh, God's doing this work, and really, not that that's wrong or bad, but valuing the small level, because that's where life change really takes place. That's where we're impacted, in my opinion, the most profoundly. So, anyways, I'm saying a lot there, but but I think it's something we got to keep getting back to. And our mental health battlegrounds are often messaging, hey, we got to get back to what it means to get rooted in that love.
Yeah, it's so sad. And I think, of course, there's a spiritual warfare component to the enemy being very motivated to steer us into the direction of sort of a functioning dysfunction, and being okay just being very busy and performative. And it's like, it's like we've got this house with a falling down foundation, and we just run around cleaning the windows and vacuuming and fixing little things on the outside. And just, we're very content. He's very content, I think, to just let us live in that surface level, busy, medicated, just keep going kind of mentality, rather than to say, discover the profound beauty of dealing with the core issue, finding that love that is so transformative. But I think we have an enemy that's very active in keeping us from going there. And also, I think, as you said, there's a Christian culture that still puts too much stock in this sort of meritocratic spirituality. I am what I do. If I can just do all these things, then I will fix it. And there is a letting go of almost just saying, no, I'm a branch. And what God requires of me is clinging on to him.
Yeah.
And that requires a letting go of frenetic activity and busyness and all of these other things that I think the enemy uses to distract us.
Yeah. And I'm curious, how did you come to a discovery of that? You speak very well to this. How did you personally realize these patterns and see, like, we need to, keep a healthier focus?
Well, I think, like everyone, it is an ongoing struggle, right? I think I am prone to all of the do. I also have a 9-year-old, a 7-year-old, and a 5-year-old. So, like, by definition, it's very easy to look up and a month has gone by.
Yeah.
I think I just discovered very early on the deep, rich, life-giving value of just seeking my dad, just being with my creator. I tell this story on this podcast a lot, but one of the most profound spiritual breakthroughs in my life was when I transitioned from high school in New Zealand to university here in the US. And it was kind of a lonely reset for me. I'd moved continents 3 times. I was starting over again socially. And it was just hard. It was for me, relatively, it was probably the most difficult mental period of my life. It's all relative, obviously. And when I came home in New Zealand over the summer there, my dad said, hey, he probably perceived the reality of where I was at and was like, hey, we should go on these prayer walks. And we lived in New Zealand on the ocean. I know, sorry, sad me. We lived in this beautiful spot. And he said, hey, let's go on these walks and let's pray together. And there's a coffee shop and we can walk and we did this every day, that entire summer. And I would say for the first time, I understood what it means to be a branch. I learned what it means to really seek and know and love my dad and seek and realize that he knows and loves me. And it was through this beautiful spiritual discipline that formed at that point of, I need to be outside. I need to walk. I need to be honest. I need to tell God everything I'm feeling and allow him to permeate my life and change me. And I'm telling you, this pattern and rhythm has now stayed with me. I mean, I was out in the parking lot of my office building, walking in circles, doing the very thing my dad helped me learn all the way back then. And I think it's that grounding that's become my anchor. It's become my rallying point when the fog of war and busyness and struggle creeps in and confuses me. I have learned mechanistically to go back to that core and say, whoa, okay, all of this needs to be put aside. I need to get back with my dad. And I need to get back to that place. And that's become, I think, the anchoring place of rediscovering my identity, reorienting myself to who God is, who I am, dealing with my anxious thoughts, the busyness of life, the challenges I'm going through. So it's really been that. That was a long-winded way of saying I think that has been the most profound revelation, as simple as that sounds.
Yeah, it's not long-winded at all. You listening to you is very encouraging for me. It really is, because I see you awake to your emotional life, to that meaningful connection to God. I see the picture of your earthly dad, as well as what that's done to then usher into your connection to your heavenly Father. It encourages me, because we need more guys like you out there, husbands, dads. Also, you got a job, you got stuff going on, responsibilities, but there's that homing device of who I am is not like just lost in what I do. I'm loved right now, right where I'm at. And I need reminders of my anchoring in that. Because I had to do this little simple routine where I would just sit in a chair and just put my hand over my heart and Father, you love me right now. And I want to anchor myself in that, because I'm about to go into this day and everything in my day is going to tell me, do this to be loved, or get pulled, in all these directions. And I just want to anchor myself. So I remember throughout this day, I don't have to be pulled by that anxiousness or that emptiness. I can be filled by you in this, because I live from love. So it, in all my work, in digging in the trenches and working, there's a lot of disconnection, to what we're talking about here. Disconnect to emotions. I spent years in, the church world, just kind of like, I felt like I had a sledgehammer, just trying to get through like the hard shells and it's okay, especially for the men, because they'd be very, very hesitant to kind of go there. I could get it. It's all right though. You can go here, So, I appreciate you sharing that, because it's encouraging to me what you're doing, because even your ministry is doing great things and touching, impacting people's lives, but there's a core I can sense in you that is authentic, real, and so thank you for that.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. And I used a phrase earlier on in this conversation, rather, that you said you don't graduate from God's love. And I would say that the more I walk this out, it's more that recognition that I'm not going to learn this lesson in a binary sense, lesson learned. Yeah. It's more a reality that, Ben, you're going to need to keep coming back to this again and again and again and again. And it's not so much, what's the best way to say this? It's not so much that it's a thing accomplished as more of a process, a rhythm, like I said, an anchoring point in my life that I know is going to have to be there, and it's going to be there in the hard times and the good times and everything else in between. But it is never something I know I will never graduate from this, because it's the very process by which I remind myself of who I am and what's true.
Yeah.
And so to think that I would graduate from that doesn't make any sense, right?
Yeah.
It's like,
yeah. So, and I think I think many Christians try to treat themselves as though they should be a finished product. And a journey mindset is something I talk about a lot, and it's woven within a lot of things that I do or write or talk about, because many are condemning themselves because they don't see like a finished product looking result in their life.
Sure.
And we're not recognizing, and many are saying, wow, you're right, it is a journey. And that often settles the waters a bit to kind of go, okay, I'm on my way here. And now I lean into learning. So this is the cool thing about this like never arriving, I'm on a journey, is it keeps you in humility and teachability.
Yeah.
So like we're doing this meeting, you contacted me, but I'm sitting here being blessed listening to you. I'm learning from you. You're learning, you're hearing whatever I can, it's like we open up our frequencies to taking in learning, growth, and development everywhere we go, because there is no, like, in the kingdom of God, there's no expert, so to speak. It's like we're all in this journey, and it creates such a grace opportunity of what it looks like to navigate issues and not be afraid of them, not be afraid of the things that come our way that we're wrestling with. So
yeah, it's totally what you're saying. It's like I was just interviewing a friend of mine. His name's Josh Porter. He's a pastor out in the West Coast, and he wrote a book on discipleship called How to Die. And he's this from this artist world. He was in this punk band, and he's this very artistic guy. And he wrote this brilliant book. And one of the key lines from it was that he realized that the core of self-denial was the willingness to surrender to love. And then he used an analogy in his marriage that it's like, part of my self-denial in marriage is just accepting love, is just accepting that I can't control it. I'm never going to be perfect. There's always going to be an issue, an element of struggle, but the self-denial is this surrender to love. And I just thought it was such a profound way of describing exactly what you're saying, which is that this is a never-ending process, and true freedom is knowing that we have the source of hope in the midst of what will never be a never-ending process, and that's okay. Yeah,
it is okay. That's powerful. We think of surrender as something like, okay, here's a list of things I got to give up.
Exactly.
Go down that route. Versus like, I see what you're saying as like a burden lifting. Like I'm changing yokes. I'm coming into this beautiful thing, and you're right. You said it earlier. There's a war over this. I think I just personally see the war that comes against Christians. A lot of it is to perpetuate this sense of disconnection, like a sense of being disconnected from God. Because if I feel or have a sense of feeling disconnected from God, it's going to branch out into all kinds of behaviors, all kinds of things. I'm going to look for love in the wrong places. I'm going to, get into performance mode. I got to prove myself. I'm going to compare myself to others. I'm going to feel like I'm not good enough. I'm going to, like, it's just the list is just going to go on and on. And so I think that, what you're sharing here of surrendering into love is a great reminder of that. Really, really good.
And there's almost this sad thing you see in people where they're clinging on almost to the struggle rather than surrendering to the love. You know what I mean? It's like there's almost this weird twisted control in remaining bitter, remaining feeling condemned and feeling like they're not good enough. There's almost a weird self-imposed imprisonment. I know it's more complex than that, but I see that where it's like you're just going, and I'm sure you've done this, where you're just like begging people to accept Jesus' vision for who they are, and they just remain locked in these patterns and these behaviors and these mentalities and ways of thinking that it's just, and years go by and you have the same conversations.
Yes.
How do we, is this just a purely spiritual thing? Is it a prayer thing? Is it a begging and pleading thing? Like, And maybe that relates to a question I wanted to ask, which is every one of us deals with mental health, emotional health struggles, but also every one of us deals with people in our lives who we love desperately, who are locked in these things. And we often feel like we've done all the things. We've passive aggressively handed them the books. We've prayed. We've sent them the YouTube links. It's all, we've cried and we've yelled and we've tried everything, right? And we feel desperate and helpless sometimes. How, as a positioned person, not as a perfect person, but as a person who cares and wants to help, what do we do?
Yeah, you're talking about the deep trenches, and one of the biggest pains that people in any kind of compassion work face, and that's like you're offering something to somebody. You're seeing something in somebody, and you're loving on them, believing in them, giving. Grace is there, love is there, and it hits a wall, it kind of bounces off, and it's one of the heartbreaks. And I've had to learn a lot of layers and how to relate to that, because there was times where I would just take on that Superman cape and tie it tighter and just try harder. And maybe I say it this way, maybe I do it that way. Actually created a lot of burnout in my journey, and had to learn how to give situations over to God and realize I'm a vessel and not carrying that excessive kind of burden that we can get into, like a false burden bearing. But I also feel like it helped me to tune into God's heart for humanity, because his love is there, his goodness is there. We get that sense of rejecting it and pushing back to that, and not receiving it. I think to go to your question, I think that when you've been disconnected to love, there's this problem where you get used to that. You get used to your coping mechanisms. So, for example, if I'm massively neglected as a child and no one's there for me, and I develop this mindset that life is on my own, I can't count on anybody. If I don't come to illumination of that, I will push people away, push people away, push people away, push people away. Love will be right in front of me, and I will find a way to reject it, to disqualify it, to say no to it, to keep what has developed in my heart, which is at first it's a wall of protection. But that wall becomes a prison, because it's not having a function now other than imprisonment. It's blocking me. So, like, for me, I had to realize that I had a world of rejection kind of thinking in my life, meaning I perform for life, life's on my own, and I'll reject you before you reject me in my head so that I don't get hurt. And then an imprisonment of like a self versus self battle. I think from a scriptural standpoint and the spiritual warfare standpoint, it's almost like if the enemy can get us at war with ourselves, it's like, okay, there you go. That person's going to be in a whole war on their own. They get locked in this feedback loop, these issues of self-hatred and shame and self-rejection. Some of that gets spiritualized too. That's a whole tangent itself, where I watched this for a lot in my upbringing in the church, that like, rejecting or putting yourself down was seen as admirable, right? And it's like, wait a second, I don't know that this is what Jesus died for, like this kind of self-imposed rejecting and putting yourself in a like a condemning kind of way, and so the choice to say, I got to open up my heart to love. I think it is one of the aches of life, that you can love somebody all day long and that resistance just goes, no. And I think that for me, I had to have an awareness. That's something I battle with. And I had to make a decision. God, I don't know you. I don't know you in the love that I'm needing. Again, this is a Christian of decades saying this. I grew up in the church. I need to be open to that. So then what I did was, I made a very significant adjustment in my life. At the time, I was working at a church. We, had multiple services in the weekend, busy, all this stuff, right? I just made this one adjustment. I looked around at everybody I was working with, my worship team, the sound people, the ushers, all the people there. These are vessels of love. And I open up my heart to loving them in more meaningful ways versus just, we got a job to do. And two, I'm going to say yes when love shows up. in simple ways. So like, for example, I'd come off the stage. I was a worship leader at the time. I'd come off stage and I'd be thinking about all the things that went wrong. The drums were too fast. The mic was this, my monitor was off. This didn't, right. That we all fall into those patterns. Come off the stage. Someone goes, Pastor Mark, thank you so much. Worship was wonderful. And my head would go down, thanks, kind of do that thing. And it was like, no, as awkward as it is right now for me, I began to pick my head up. You know what? Thank you. I really appreciate that. And I began to say yes to love when it shows up. Because we'll ask God, I need you. I need you to show up. And oftentimes a person shows up. And we're like, yeah, no, that's not it. That's not it. And it's like, no, probably was it. It just wasn't in the package you expected or wanted. Right. You wanted some, divine mystical kind of thing to take place and to come out of the sky. And instead, God sends a person. And I realize that's the beautiful space there. So it's caused me to appreciate the day-to-day divine moments where love shows up. But man, we have a resistance. And it led me on a journey, and I talk a lot about it, of that resistance within ourselves to seeing ourselves through love. That many of our mental health battlegrounds have hooks onto that, keep us in our internal spirals. We turn on ourselves in shame. Something goes wrong. We look in the mirror. We're disgusted by what we see. We're in this world within ourselves. So when true love shows up, it's like, boom, it's put away. So I don't mean to go on and on about it, but I think that's a very important area to address that needs to be talked about more and more. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's an injunction to long suffering, right? We're not called to conditionally walk with people, right? We're called to love them for the person that they are now. It's like, if we're going to operate from a place of wholeness in dealing with our own issues, we have to be willing to love and serve people who are also likewise in a place of wholeness, even paradoxically, while they're still dealing with the issues that might frustrate us. And we want to see those things grow and change. And so it's a refining even in of itself. That is a refining thing. Can I love someone and have no guarantees that the brokenness that they're dealing with will ever change? Because that's not what's promised, right? It's not what's modeled either. Because if Jesus' love for me was conditioned on a certain trajectory of improvement,
right,
man, I would be in deep trouble, right? And yet that's the very grace God asks us to extend, even if it's brutal and motivated by desire to see the person grow and change. Man, I feel like we could go on and on and on. I'm respectful of your time here, so I just want to maybe end with this idea. Our culture is obsessed with the self. It's all about self-help. It's all about the quick fix. It's all about identity shifting, like a big thing on the internet right now. And what role does just selfishness play in our mental health struggles? In the sense that the tendency or the risk is that in wanting to deal with our mental and emotional struggles, we become so inward focused that in of itself compounds the problem. What's the difference between good love, self-love? It's even an expression I don't like to use.
I understand.
And the world's version of narcissism, and just ultimately something that's going to create more damage than create any solutions at all.
Yeah, that's a really good question. And it's a space I've decided to stand in and speak to help bring clarity to it. Because in Christianity, we worry about it, right? Because there's things like warnings about lovers of themselves and things like that. And it's like, I don't want to get into that territory. So I've done a lot of diving into that and realizing when we talk about whether it's everyday selfishness or an intense part of the spectrum that can move into something like narcissism, it actually begins with a disconnect to love. In the absence of love, it's now going to fuel all these battlegrounds where I'm in survival, and a part of survival is I'm staring at myself because I'm constantly trying to fix this and do this. Love works as a flow. And so to explain this really quickly, we didn't love God first. He loved us first. We loved him because he first loved us. So all love begins with God, and he loved us first. So love actually starts with being a recipient of that. which is a paradoxical shift from where a lot of us go. We think of like, I got to love God, love God, love God, love God. We haven't brought into an understanding. My love towards God is a response of his love. And because that's really what worship and our lives are, is a response to all that he is, all that he's done and doing in our lives. So in that, seeing myself out of that, and when I'm looking at myself through love, it now helps my eyes to look up and out. Because if I go, I just receive this, I just want to sit in this, and I just want to just be by myself, and I just want to just stare at myself all day, I'm not flowing in love. The flow of the water is now stagnant. It's come in and now it's just sitting. And now the water's getting murky and stagnant. It's meant to be a flow. It's meant to flow right through me. So the two battlegrounds that I've seen over the decades is, one, people struggling with just being recipients of God's love. We don't know how to receive. We don't know how to be just gracious receivers of that love. So we're always trying to like perform for God for love. And then when it comes to loving other people, we're just trying to love them. When we're disconnected from that, from ourselves, we're just performance driven. So we're just giving, you can love these people in like a certain moment, but in everyday life, we're hard on ourselves. We are cynical, condemning, accusatory. So for me, a realization that was helpful was that when times get tough, for me, Mark turns on Mark, and I become an adversarial voice that really mirrors what the enemy is saying and wanting me to come under. And so, people talk about the self-talk and all this stuff. We always got this dialogue kind of going on within us. And I looked at it and I said, what if I began to introduce the love of the Father and how he sees me? And that really comes into play when we're in pain, because most of the time when we're in trauma or pain or suffering, we do what Job did at first. He just he went down to his birth. He's like, I should have never been born. Curse the day my mom even gave, right? Mm-hmm. And again, we're humans. It's a natural thing to have that kind of response. But there's a deeper level of now connecting to that love that you're talking about, of that unconditional, I love you and I embrace you right where you're at. So I began to develop a different pathway of, I looked in the mirror and said, Mark, I was talking to myself, right? Mark, we're not going to be enemies anymore. You've been conditioned to be an enemy to yourself. And so I'm going to operate in that love and witness of how the Father relates to me. I'm going to practice that towards myself. So if we're living in that in a healthy way, so when I talk to Ben, it's going to improve my relationship with Ben, because I'm living out of what I'm cultivating within me. When I'm by myself, when I'm alone, I'm operating in kindness towards myself, patient towards my journey, what love speaks out. So when I'm with you, I'm just living out of who I am versus okay, it's ministry time. We got to, right? So, yes, it can get, but I see that whole spectrum of selfishness. It's a signal, even narcissism, even mental health and psychology. It's all in their documentation. Narcissists are massively neglected, massively disconnected at a very intense level, going back to their childhood. And even what we see in our generation, if we look at, the younger generation, wherever you are, if you're millennials looking at Gen Z, if you're Gen X looking at millennials, there's always this sense of you guys don't have it as bad as we did. You're kind of self-centered. Right. And what I find is that if I shift my lens and realize, where's the disconnect to love? Because when I see the disconnect to love, it actually opens up. I even see that with my kids, because we all have these tendencies to just become in self-survival. When we open up love, we open up the valve to look out and to bless. And now what we've been given is flowing out of us. So I'm big on in the pipeline of love, where am I growing? Is it learning to receive more? Is it learning how to see myself through that as I'm giving that out? Is it learning to see other people more through love? Because love impacts all three dimensions. And, but yeah, there is the aspect where we can get too much in ourselves. And I deal with a lot of obsessive compulsive kind of battles. It's a big part of what I talk about. It has a lot to do with intrusive thoughts that seem to come out of nowhere. And it causes people to like, I got to figure this thing out. I got to, the saying navel gaze, kind of just stare. Because we think if I stare at this thing long enough, then I'm going to fix it. And really, it's not about that. It's about, you're doing your awareness. Awareness is way different than like staring. But I'm keeping my head up because in my journey, God's doing a powerful work as what I'm learning is just being sent out into others. I'm blessing you, but I'm also experiencing healing even as I'm sharing it with you. So I'm constantly reminding people, keep your head up and looking out. Don't just stare down because life is out here. Yeah, you're battling. Yeah, you're struggling. But keep that in mind because God's on this love and grace journey with us through it all. So hope that makes sense.
It totally makes sense. And what I would add to it from my totally non-professional take here is gratitude has played a powerful role in my life. And, even as I was mentioning my spiritual disciplines of walking and seeking God, I think one of the most profound things I've grown in and learned in is this idea of gratitude where, I'm with my dad and my natural response to the love I feel in that moment is to be grateful for all that he has done for me. And this so powerfully reframes my situation and so wells up within me a desire to respond to that gratitude by loving and serving others, that it's this powerful mechanism, that it's this powerful spiritual discipline. I think so often we can view gratitude as kind of something we teach our kids, say thank you when you ask for food. But I think God uses gratitude as a way to remind him of his love for you as demonstrated by the litany of things that we all at every given moment have to be grateful for. And then the response that creates in me is a desire to want to extend that love because I'm so overwhelmed by what he has given me.
Yeah, right on. Really good. It's very evident to me that your spiritual disciplines, I'm a walker too. I go on daily walks. It's an amazing way to process and just connect to God and just what's going on in my journey. But your disciplines to me and the way you share them, they're all anchors to keep you rooted in that love and keep you rooted in that. So that's very wise of you. And because many times we look at disciplines as like, it's a list of things I got to do, make sure I do these things. When it's done anchored in love, it's like I get to do. It's like the discipline of having a date night with your wife. It's not like, I got a date night tonight, It's like if I'm like that, there's a problem. Yeah. It's more like I get to do it, but there's a fight around forgetting about it or right. So it's all disciplines are all reminders of anchoring us in that love because out of that the relationship flourishes. It's like we'll just have the date night. Where's our favorite place to go? And let's just talk and then things happen. Right. Yeah. So going back to the gratitude, I find for me, it's one of those, like with love, it's one of the underutilized, passed over kind of things. Yeah, grateful. Yeah. Thanksgiving. What's the two things you're grateful for? Mm-hmm. It's something that if I'm in a really difficult spot of my mood, what I'm going through, I find across the board in anchoring to his love tied to that gratitude. And because when you're in a funk of any kind, there's an initial resistance to it. That's kind of talking about some of the self stuff that we battle with. It's like, okay, what am I grateful for? Nothing, because everything's going wrong, right? It brings up, so the gratitude pokes at it. And God's love is not just telling us, dismissing what you're going through.
No.
It's realigning my focus into where he is. Gratitude's going to help me to align with where he is. The word says we enter his gates with thanksgiving. There's a spiritual picture of like a gateway opening up in the heavens over my heart when I connect to that sense of gratitude, right? And we enter his courts with praise. We know that verse, but I that's become a model in my mind of stewarding that connection. It's like this isn't just something, just list off a bunch of things, just do a nice thing to check it off. So for a guy like me who in so many seasons of my life has struggled and fumbled through disconnection to his love for me. God, where are you? Where am I? I'm going on. Gratitude has helped me in those moments. It's also helped me when I have those kind of breakthrough moments. Those days where I'm like, oh God, this is great. I anchor myself in gratitude in those moments because I never want to forget it. I document it. I used to leave, this is back in the early 2000s, smartphones weren't even around. I didn't have a smartphone, I had a dumb phone. I had a flip phone, and but it had, if you went through the menu like 10 times, there was like a voice recorder way in the back. And when I would kind of like have breakthrough moments of just being able to sense that connection, I'd record memos to myself.
That's good.
Mark, this is Mark, letting you know, you're going to be all right. You're loved. Just some kind of exhortation that I was connecting to in that moment, because we leak all the time. We forget. We get it. We get a breakthrough in an area, and then we're so aware of where we feel like we're going backwards, and you're not going backwards. You're going deeper. It's just deeper levels of this. But I need reminders.
Yes.
So gratitude anchors that. And I find that gratitude will keep me. And this is the way I would say it. Gratitude keeps me focused on what God is doing versus getting hung up on what I think I may think he's not doing.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? Because I can get lost into this thing, and I'm praying about this thing and this thing. Gratitude kind of anchors me in on like where the grace is. And if I remain focused in that, that's where the fruit is, versus fussing over this and why isn't this happening and why, these things aren't seeming to happen. So I treasure it, but I do run up against a lot of like, I need to be grateful.
Yeah.
It's like, no, this is really important.
And to that end, that is where it is a discipline, right?
Yeah.
That is it where it is like I'm here in Minnesota, and often we have to throw salt down when there's ice, right? And sometimes gratitude is like that, right? You got to just like, it's got to melt that layer of myopathy and self-focus and narrowed perspective. And as you start to say, God, look at this, look at this, look at this, it's like that ice starts to melt, and your problems don't go away and they don't become diminished in value, but they do shrink. Yeah. They do shrink under the full view of a God that is giving you the very breath in your lungs. They appropriately shrink. Yeah. And it allows you to go, okay, this is real. It's okay. These are things that God wants to hear about, but man, it feels different now than it did before I enacted this beautiful process of melting away my narrow focus. And I reminded myself of the goodness of God. That's really what gratitude has done in my life. Yeah,
very well said. You speak these things very well. You articulate it from the heart in a really good way. So I appreciate that.
Yeah. Well, Mark, I have so appreciated this conversation, honestly. And I feel like we went very high level, and I know you do a lot of work in very specific struggles that people deal with. I do want to point people to your website, because I think this is where people can find all of what you do, and blogs and videos and resources and books, markdejesus.com.
Yep.
We will put it in the intro. I will mention it in the show notes, all the places. But this is where people can find really specific, practical resources that we have to have another conversation. I'm going to commit you live here so that you can't say no.
You got it.
And we can get more specific, but I think it was really an important 10,000 foot that we were able to touch.
Yeah.
But are there any other places you would send people to, or thoughts that they, if they, I don't know, how can they get more from you?
That's great. My website there, I do a lot of work on YouTube and Rumble, and I live stream on Sundays, and I do a lot of question answering. I get tons of questions every week. And when I was in the trenches, feeling like I didn't know where to turn, I would have wanted, somebody I could ask. And so that's part of my journey. I've committed myself to just doing the best I can to be available to the battles, to speak into them, and some of the nuances of the difficulties of it. So, and I do weekly podcasting, video content. I've got books on various topics. I'm continuing to get specific in mental health aspects of battlegrounds. Right now, it's been a lot of OCD, intrusive thought kind of stuff, but I also have a lot of resources on anxiety and other areas too, depression, all that kind of stuff. So that's great. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, markdejesus.com. Like I said, we'll put it everywhere. I absolutely love what you do. I know there are people in my life who have been massively encouraged by you. One of my good friends, he's like, you've got to have Mark on the podcast. So this is like
awesome. That's so nice.
A bucket list of his. He's actually the guy that edits this. So his name's Steve, and he will be editing this, and I'm sure he'll be loving this conversation. So if it was just for him, he's a good dear friend of mine. He's been in ministry with me for 16 years, something crazy like that.
That's awesome. So, tell Steve to write to me. I'd love to just write him back, you know?
Yeah. And he's one of the most phenomenal musicians, because you were in worship, right? Worship leader?
Yeah.
He's one of the most amazing musicians you will ever meet. So maybe you guys should be friends. But
that is phenomenal.
Awesome. Mark, thank you. Like I said, I'm going to hit end record here and let this file upload, but I know our listeners are going to be blown away by this. Thank you. Thank you for your work. Let's do this again. And
absolutely.
Yeah, let's talk soon.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching Provoke Inspire. If you enjoyed this content, could you do me a favor and hit that like button? Leave us a comment, because this ultimately is a conversation. Hit that bell thing, I think, right? And YouTube seems to be recommending another video for you to watch. Check it out. Stay involved. Also, ProvokeInspirePodcast.com for everything else. That's it. Peace.